Welcome. In this video, I would like to discuss the context of not using food in training. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of trainers out there who sense that there's a problem, okay, in the dog training world when it comes to using food, okay, to train dogs. And so they will subscribe to not using food, okay? They'll say, well, I'm not going to use food because I know there's a problem with that. I sense that there's a problem. I can kind of get a sense that, there's, when they're looking at what's happening in the dog training world. And a lot of it really does come from, without a doubt, many of these trainers, and they call themselves balanced dog trainers, are getting a lot of people coming to them who have gone through the whole treat training approach. Okay, they're getting a lot of people coming to them from these treat trainers, without a doubt. Okay, there's no doubt whatsoever in my mind about that. So a lot of their basis of looking at that, okay, sensing, that's where I talk about sensing there's a problem. They'll look at that and say, well, there's a pattern here. Okay, there's this is an established pattern that I can get a sense of. I see that, and so I simply I'm not going to use food. Okay, so, which, don't get me wrong, that in itself, that's a good thing. Okay, I'm not saying that that's doesn't have validity to remove food from the equation, but the point of this video is to actually go further than that. Okay, to help people understand just the depth of the problem, help people get a better sense of it. Because really, when I talk about there's a spectrum. Okay, there's a kind of a spectrum that you can follow to chart this out. When I talk about the risk levels, how they increase for dogs and owners, okay, through certain approaches, okay, and one of those risk factors, how they increase when you see people tying in their methodology to using food, okay, based on those dynamics, the risk levels escalate, okay, without a doubt. Now, I talk about, again, this whole concept of balanced dog training, and this is where I'm kind of going to be making a point here in a minute about the depth of the problem here. Again, the point is, without a doubt, okay, when people call themselves a balanced dog trainer and they're incorporating certain things in that they kind of, again, get a sense of, it could be they're going to use corrections, they're going to work off of 4 quadrants instead of 2 or 1 quadrant, and so they will make the adjustment, okay, and they'll promote leadership, okay, they'll do certain things to kind of offset, okay, to kind of say, okay, I'm different, I believe there's a problem here, training needs to take on defines a balanced approach, okay, but again, they'll also remove food from the equation. The point I'm making here is understanding the depth of the issue here is to go further than even that, to really understand the problem, is to actually call out what the real problem is, okay, and the real problem is the learning narrative itself, okay. I want people to understand where I'm going here with this, in terms of going beyond just the context of agreeing to not use treats, okay, because here's the issue. Once you really understand how change is defined, okay, how it frames up, okay, relationally, okay, in and through the owner, okay, you start to really get a sense of the role the person themselves plays through how they think, okay, and then the specifics of the method, which I'm going to get into again upcoming videos. I'm really going to go point by point through this for people to really help understand, because there is a lot to this, there's depth to this, but the point here is understanding what the real problem is. Because here's the point, you could remove food from the equation, which I'm saying that is a good start, okay, that's a good kind of starting point, but to go further than that, to understand that based on this narrative, this learning narrative, when you subscribe to this interpretation, when you're using a motivating agent beyond food, okay, whether you decide, well, I don't want to use food, I'm going to use a treat, I'll use praise, I'll use some sort of reward system, it's still can cause an issue. I want you to understand, because the issue itself is based on this narrative based off of just having a dog respond, okay, through painting a picture, okay, through response, right at the starting gate, getting a dog to respond, and then through that tenet, that established narrative through in the dog training world, very popular, is that assuming just because you change it up with certain things that those responses represent that good things are happening. Okay, even still, it presents a problem based on the process. Okay, the process itself through that learning narrative. So the mere fact that you're incorporating, or you've aligned yourself with that learning narrative to paint the picture. And again, this is the reason why, when you really look at the confusion and why it is that when you see this debate going back and forth between trainers, there's no resolution. There's no real marked or clear anyone standing out. That's what I'm saying. There's no one standing out to say, okay, what makes this guy really different from that guy? Okay, they're arguing back and forth between, you know, quadrants and all this stuff, and it's so confusing to people. Say but when I come out and say, okay, training is not a learning-based exercise, and then it's like, whoa, hold on here a second. That's like, what's Dale saying? That's like, I mean, that throws a wrench into everything. But think about that, though. I mean, if you look at the problems and you really get a sense of how massive they are, and then you have someone come forward to say, okay, this is the problem, okay, and I'm real specific about it, it'll make sense. Okay, it'll make sense. Now, here's the other issue, is that it's also so challenging, though, right? Because if I come out and say that, which I do, and you realize that the majority of trainers and people have come into agreement with this narrative and written books and all these things, put their whole careers into this, just imagine, and that is the point too, how problematic it is, or how challenging it is for people to accept that, right? The tendency is to try to shut that down. But again, I'm being, you know, totally transparent. I put this stuff out very clearly. But again, the point of the video too is to say, just because, again, my point is you have to go deeper. Just because you take treats out of the equation, I don't want you to think for a second that you're not going to still problems, okay? And yes, as a balanced dog trainer, you will be better than perhaps a so-called pure positive trainer, or whatever you want to call those who use treats, okay? But even getting a line, again, defining what is balanced training, I talk about that on some other videos, it's very confusing, because it's like, well, what defines or sets certain people apart? What really establishes, you know, a trainer? And you know, there's no line in the sand. It's all over the place. But again, when you really look at the process itself and consider the fact of what the process really is, there is your marked distinction. Okay, I want to, you know, encourage people to think about that. And yeah, it's going to be so challenging for people, but it will make complete sense when you start to line this stuff up and begin to look beyond just the appearance of things, how things can look a certain way in the training environment, okay? However, you know, beyond the training environment, you see how behavior issues are still unresolved, where you say, man, okay, things look really fantastic in the training environment, but beyond that, it's still a mess, right? You're still dealing with a tremendous mess, and then you're trying to figure out to say, well, is it the dog's fault? You'll start to realize why there's a disconnect, why this stuff doesn't line up between the training environment and real life, okay? But there it is. So anyway, I just encourage you to think about it. It's more than just about treats, okay? It's deeper than that. You have to go to the core of the problem, the heart of the problem, and it's to do with this learning narrative itself, okay? Mainstream dog training itself, what they've kind of bought into. Again, and I'll talk more about this whole thing about the process and, you know, why it's such a problem in terms of just what people get out of it. But really important to understand what the problem is, so you can start to move beyond appearance and start to create meaningful change for dogs and owners. So thanks for watching.